Hey, this is Kahja Elliott, Bronx born and raised, ATL made, Bay Area becoming, and this is the As Told By podcast. What up? We are back this week with a new episode of the As Told By podcast. And I think I mentioned in another episode that for some reason this season was just morphing into a food season altogether. And so in keeping with the theme and in keeping with the fact that I like to say I'm curating love in the Bay Area and beyond, I had to bring a Bay Area food staple up here to interview for the podcast. So you all know this person if you're here in the Bay. They are a San Francisco native. They are a restaurateur. If you are a fan of vegan food, you probably know them. Even if you are not a vegan, you probably know them. So Toriano Gordon of Vegan Mob.
How you doing?
Good. Welcome to the As Told By podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Appreciate it.
So you're I like to say a founding member here of the Bay Area in, more than one discipline because you have a background in music and then you now have your background. People know you as a restaurateur as well. So excited to talk to you.
Right on. I
got to read your new cookbook.
Thank you. How was it?
It was really good. I love this new thing where cookbooks are like, of course, they're recipes, but then they're also storytelling books as well.
Yeah.
So I felt like I learned a lot about you and your journey through reading the book and then, of course, the recipes as well. So excited for the conversation.
Right on. Thank you.
Yes.
Me too.
So you are from Fillmore. Look, Fillmore is Fillmore.
Fillmore. Yeah, Fillmore. Yeah.
Tell people who are listening who are not from the Bay what Fillmore was, and was like during the time you came up.
Yeah. Fillmore was just a lot of pride, a lot of unity, musical, talented, player, street, fly. It's just like a center of attention. Like that's how it was when I was growing up, and it's changed, of course, but we still kind of put that out there in all of us.
Yeah.
So
I think a lot of people don't realize, I know you and I were just talking before we got started that I'm a transplant. I've been in the Bay now for almost 10 years. So by the time I got here, San Francisco was no longer a black city, right? And didn't have just like a big black population, but it did.
It did.
And a lot of it was there where you were from.
Yeah. A lot of it. Like, it was just like us all through in culture and churches and food and just beautiful,
Jazz, I heard
jazz.
too.
It's they call it the Harlem of the West.
Okay.
Yeah. So that term came before my time, but it was where all the musicians, the jazz musicians, the comedians, the R&B singers, they would pull up to Fillmore, and it was hotels and clubs, and they would party and perform.
Wow.
And so they call it the Harlem of the West.
Okay. So now coming up out of that area, talk about the influence of seeing black entrepreneurship from an early age.
Ooh, that's crazy because a lot of my game comes from the neighborhood. Like people that were in the neighborhood inspired me to be entrepreneurs. Like shout out to Showtime. He still has a vegan company right now called Vegan for Life, and I forget what the shop is, but it's in San Francisco on Ocean Avenue.
Okay.
But he wasn't originally like health vegan. He was always known for having like a record shop, like in the neighborhood. He had the dopest record store. And my connection, of course, is I love music, so I would go to his store. But he was my mom's good friend. He's an entrepreneur. I seen him maybe work one job in his whole life.
Okay.
But always being like, he put out one of my albums. Like, so he was like somebody that I looked up to as like somebody who inspired me to be an entrepreneur. And there was tons of entrepreneurs in the mall. Even my mama, she a lawyer, but I always seen her create businesses. She didn't like to work at other jobs. Like she would
Make
leave
her own
fast.
thing.
She make her own thing. Yeah. A moving company, a promotion and marketing company where she did for a while, where she managed and marketed and promoted rap artists.
Okay.
Yeah. So I grew up in the entertainment, so she was a influence. And then, my dad's, but they're more on the street side.
Okay.
They
So you
didn't
got
really-
it honest.
I got it honest. Yeah, they never had no business. They had businesses that when my biological actually did before he went to prison, and he's home now. He went for 27 years.
Oh, wow.
And but he had a business before he left.
Mm-hmm.
But the old stuff caught up to him, and that's why he ended up going back. But I watched everybody musical and this and that. So like, it's what it's
what
just
you
my
know.
surroundings, what I knew.
Yeah.
It's and I thought it was normal for me. And then, then I changed. I was trying to work, everything, but my spirit would not let me. It would just take me over here. And now you got to start this, or you got to do this, or you got to do some Uber, whatever. I just couldn't stay at a job.
Okay. So that's interesting, because you typically see it the other way around, right? Like where people are just socialized to work a job. And if you're trying to go into entrepreneurship, that's a little bit more of the challenge. But if I'm hearing you right, entrepreneurship was the norm and the job was the challenge.
Yeah. That's how it, and I noticed that the other day, and I was thinking like thinking about something that I had to do, right? And I had this, chores at the house. I'm not even gonna lie to you. And it felt like a job, and I felt like miserable. And I'm a grown man, right? And my wife like, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this. I'm like, and I'm feeling this feeling, and I'm like, oh, this is how it was for me with a job. This is how I felt like at a job. I couldn't do it. It was just
confined.
I feel confined, yeah. But when I changed my life, I did work, and I was happy to work. But then after a couple of years, I was like, all right,
Do your own
I'm
thing.
normal now. Now I feel like I proved that I'm a society, like a good member of society. I gave back. I did the right thing. And now I can go do me.
Exactly.
And I can trust me to do me the correct way.
That's important. Trusting yourself to be able to do the right thing.
Yep.
What I like about this is, of course, the vehicle for what we're talking about today is the cookbook and food, but it's the real story is the story of the entrepreneur, right? And with things like, Earn Your Leisure and all the things right now that are really focused around Black people in particular around entrepreneurship, do you think that that's something that you either just have it or you don't, or do you think it's really teachable?
Ooh, I think both. Like, I think if you want to, you can be taught if that's what you. But then again, it still has to be somewhere in you, because if you want to be taught, that means that you're yearning for you. Like, I gotta do this. I just worked all my life, but I want to be an entrepreneur. What do I do, right? So I think it does. Overall, I have to just be in you. I feel like you gotta. It's what you choose. It's like either I'm gonna do this or I'm gonna do that. Like you're wired. It's how you're wired.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Gotta be ready for that hustle.
Gotta be ready for the hustle.
It's real. It's real. So, I mentioned that you have, in addition to your restaurants and food, you have a background as a musician. And, there's a commonality between music and food and storytelling that you talked about a bit in the book. And you mentioned, not only been here 10 years, so some of this predates me, but you mentioned being part of a group called Fully Loaded. So what was that group? What kind of music did you make? I know it's hip hop music, but talk a bit about your time in the group.
So my first album was called Young No, Taking It to the Next, and I was in high school. After that album, I jumped into this group called Fully Loaded, but I was inspired by a group called they used to be called Never Legal.
Okay.
And I don't know why I'm catching a brain, which is crazy.
It's gonna come to you.
It's my brothers too. I don't know why I'm lost right now. Right? It's my folks like Hood Stars.
Okay.
I think it's them Hood Stars.
Okay.
And they were in a group. It was 4 of them. They're from East Palo Alto. I was touring with them, and I was like, I was, impressionable. I was young. I was 16, 17, and I was like, I want to do a group. They got me pumped up. I was like, damn, I got to have a group. So, Bailey and Big Rich are my group members, fully loaded. Big Rich runs a program called Project Level.
Okay.
In the city. And he manages, so he manages some artists that you may know, like Nefta Pharaoh. He's helped Lil Kayla.
I heard of Lil Kayla.
Who else? What else are 2 people that you so he's been behind them, part of like helping develop them.
Nice.
And so that's what he does now. And my other group member, his name is Bailey. Bailey is the little brother of San Quinn. I don't know if you heard of San Quinn.
I have not.
So San Quinn is like a legend in San Francisco, a Bay Area legend.
I better get up on it, y'all.
One of the rawest to ever touch the mic. And
okay.
So even when people come from the East Coast, like Ray Klein, they call it now. They're like, "Yo, where Quinn at?"
Okay.
Like they know who he is. So just because he crazy.
Okay.
He's from Fillmore. Like me.
All right.
You know what I'm saying? So, and we were not known for like super lyrical. We known for like more like player, hustler, street rap, So Fully Loaded was, it was definitely like street, hard,
all the
hard gangster, you know what I'm saying? It was all that. That's what Fully Loaded was,
okay.
Just straight, just a combination of everything. Frisco, like gangster, street, player, everything, all in one.
All put together.
All put together. And so that was Fully Loaded. And we were young. And so we were very explosive. Like we were hotheads. On the mic, like, I mean, I was a little more, but on the mic, we was all pretty, like, very spunky.
Okay.
Yeah, so
that's a nice way to put it, spunky.
Yeah, very spunky. And and so that's what Fully Loaded, when we brought a lot of energy to the rap world and to the Bay Area, and just we at that time we were the group. We killed it.
Yeah.
No social media, no nothing.
No, you had to go on skill.
And we made a lot of noise. So that all of us are really talented, and we moved on to do other things. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right. It's, I love these moments I have when I go to, every now and again, like I'll be at a live music show and they'll bring somebody out and I will notice the entire crowd goes crazy. And I have to ask because I don't know, because it's an artist who was maybe popular some years back. And so I don't have the context, but I'll put it on Instagram and somebody will tell me, oh, you don't know that so-and-so. So I always love these conversations where I get to learn a little bit more about the Bay Area music scene, because there's such a unique energy right here, just locally and regionally, and that shows up in the music, but it also shows up in the food. So you talked a bit in the book about trying to hone in, and as you were learning to cook, bringing in the things that were specific to the cultural makeup in the Bay, to how you just like to eat and cook generally. So was that a part of what was in your neighborhoods, part of what was in your family, or how did you really start playing around with different genres, if you will, of food?
You know what? San Francisco is melting pot. So like at one point in time, San Francisco was probably the most diverse city in the world. And so the food shows it. Like, you from New York, New York is a really diverse city. You got different types of cuisines.
Pockets everywhere.
Everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And you guys are a little different than ours because you got different people that migrate there. right? You know, so you probably got more Jamaican food.
Caribbeans, yeah.
You know, and out here we're just now getting more of that, you know. But you know, we got different type of cuisine, you know.
Y'all got the best Asian food.
That's what I'm saying.
I've ever had.
You see what I went to? Straight to Thai food, right? And so Thai food, Italian food, French food, Middle Eastern, Mexican food. So my favorite foods are outside of soul food and barbecue, 'cause I love barbecue, is Asian cuisine, and I love Mexican food. So in my book, it's a collaboration of like everything that I grew up eating, like you said, and it came from not just my environment, but my mother too. She's very open-minded, and she always told me to try new food. And it's how I got my wife.
Okay.
So I took her to different restaurants here. I've never had this, and try this.
Just let me expose you to some things.
Yeah, right. And so, you know, she learned some new stuff, and that was something that, you know, she was attracted to me for just my knowledge of different
Y'all hear that, fellas? You can hook people with food.
Yeah, you definitely can, right?
Well, you mentioned your mom, and you talk a lot in the book about the influence of people in your family on, you know, just your culinary trajectory. I want to just read something you stated here. You said, if you take a good look at Vegan Mom's menu, you'll see that I'm not only trying to make bomb-ass vegan food, I'm also telling a story. Specifically, I'm telling the story of the women in my family, especially my grandmother who moved to the Bay from Texas and used her courage to make a life for herself and her family. So you probably like the 10th, 11th, 12th person who I've interviewed this season and in past seasons of the podcast who is speaking about the relevance of their grandmother on their palate, on their decision to go into a culinary career, and as really being the place where they got fundamentals about what it meant to be in food culture, right? Which I love. So talk a little bit more about the women in your family and kind of what the energy was in the family around women and food.
Yeah. They're I want to say that they're really strong women in my family, like extremely strong, tough leaders. They're leaders, you know. And I grew up mostly around women in my family. I had a lot of women because the fathers were gone, you know. Streets are in jail, right?
Is what it is.
And so, but they took a lot of pride in the food that every single woman in the family that I was raised around took so much pride in their food, you know. Just my aunt Nanny, she my grandmother's sister, and she lived over here in Berkeley, and she would do barbecue and grow her vegetables, and that's how she would talk. How I'm talking about it, how she's talking about it. I got my green beans, and I picked my green. She, you know, she was so into it, and so and the food was so good, so it gave me like this. I just was drawn to it, like I loved food, like ever since I was a little kid. And then my grandmother, the same thing. And then the stories that she would bring with it. You know, we used to fry this chicken like this. And I just was connected to history. Like
That's what it is.
You know, and it would take me back to Texas, or like I'd never been but one time. So it was like my door to Texas. And then my mother, you know, she's there. She from San Francisco.
Okay.
Right? She not from the South. She cooks the Southern food well, but she cooked lasagna and
she was a little more diverse.
And she was very diverse with it, and healthy food and this food and gourmet and soul and this, and like my mother's a very good cook, you know, and I picked up a lot of that from her, and she's very cocky about her cooking, and she's just not loud.
If it's good, hey,
she's not loud, but in her demeanor. And so they were all bosses too, and that's what gave me confidence, you know, is the women in my family is bosses. So now I know what type of woman I'm looking for, what I gotta be, I got these critics is what they are around me. I love like live in a community full of critics. They're very critical, and very tough.
But they give it up.
They give it, and so but it gave me confidence.
Yeah.
In not just cooking, but in just life in general. So that explains them.
Walking into an industry boldly, you tell a story in here. Your grandmother sounded like she was a G because she had a whole background in labor unions, right? I really enjoyed reading that about being out front and advocating for rights around working conditions and pay conditions and all of those things. So coming from this and having this background of people that you're stepping off into the platforms of all the things you're doing, music and food. And then you talk over the years about the passing of your grandmother in 2009 and where that found you at that time in your life. You referenced that you were battling depression, that you were drinking and smoking, right, as a means to deal with that. And so being in that space in 2009, you have your grandmother who's this influence and you're just not in the best place, right? And then fast forward 10 years when Vegan Mob opens in 2019. What's going on in that decade in between that you think was transformative? Because it's a long road from depression, drinking, smoking every day to owning a restaurant.
I know.
Yeah.
It's crazy, right?
It is. Amazingly. In the best way.
God is great.
Hey, all the time.
All the time, yeah.
What changed for you in those 10 years?
You know what? She was grandma was very tough, right? And she was very caring at the same time. She was like loving, but sharp, like tough, like getting sting you, right? And I was like, oh man, like she would say some rough things. And so her being around, I feel like was a crutch too. She, even though I was doing like I go out and mess up on my own, I just felt like a security or something, like she was there. So I think her being like survival, one, and then just also I always knew who I was, always thought I was great, but it was something I had to prove too, because I was like, people saw this dude, I was like, nah, they got me all the way messed up, like they had me messed up,
Yeah.
and they didn't believe me when I was going through my BS, they didn't believe me. It sounded like I was crazy. And so I was like, I'm going to show them how crazy I am. And that was it, and part of her is confidence from my grandmother. And it actually, like, I cried a lot because I put my grandmother through a lot. And I just now forgive myself for that. But I know that she's in me. I know that she watched me. I always knew that person right there is who I was around so much. Like I know I'm great. Like my grandma, like I took the crit, and I didn't know if she thought before she passed, if she was scared that I was even gonna make it.
Wow.
Yeah. Because that's how where I was, in life, But I did tell her that on that deathbed, I told her, I promise you, I got this.
You kept that promise.
I told her, I promise you. And she looked at me and I told her, I promise you. And she shook her head. And that was it.
You kept that promise.
Kept that promise, yep.
And, it's such a long road, 10 years to kind of getting yourself in the mental space to take on something as all-encompassing as entrepreneurship. But I read in here that you were training to be a therapist. Okay. Yeah. What happened with that?
Okay, so I went. So this is everything. This is like, all right. I went to a program, and I was like, all right. Got out this program. I was like, now I'm about to tear it up. Like what I gotta do. And so I worked, first. Like,
Yeah.
I got my feet wet with working. My wife came along. When my wife came along, she got this, like, this irritated, aggressive, like, ready to, like, just go crazy, man. Like, not crazy in a way, like, not in a negative way, but, like, all right, it's time for me to
Go hard.
it's time for me to go hard.
Yeah.
Like, and I was working, like, double jobs. I was like, what is this doing? Just paying the bills. Like, I need to do something, right? Just too repetitive. I need to get busy. And so she saw me, like, irritated at this. I was working at Bevmo.
Okay.
And I got back to all the way back to they got me all the way, you know what I'm saying, messed up. But those environments were meant to be, to show me that I knew that I didn't belong here. Like, this ain't me. And I was like, they got me, they got me all the way, man. Like, it's like watch. And all that stuff helped, it just was led to one thing to another, and it just led me to, I went to school. That's next. So I went to school, got straight A's. I got my first A, and after that, it was like a drug.
You hooked.
I was hooked, and I was like, hey, killing it. And it was about me accomplishing things, really, like building my self-esteem. My mom told me, like, you may not need this for what you want to do, but it's gonna help you build your self-esteem. And so part of it was for me, part of it was for my family, to represent my family. The other part was for my daughters. Like, I got a 10-year-old and I got a 23-year-old.
Okay.
My oldest one was in I think starting high school. And I was like, I gotta show her that she has to go to college. I gotta show her that she gotta be responsible, and I gotta do it. So this is what I gotta do for my kids. Like, I gotta be an example.
You got eyes on you.
I gotta do, this is what I gotta do. And I know my mom, by her going to school, gave me the confidence to go to school, because she had a past. She dealt with drugs and stuff like that. She turned her life around, became a lawyer.
Oh, wow.
So I was killing it. I was straight A's, Dean's List 5 times.
What?
Yep. Back to back. Graduated with a 3.9, a cumulative 3.9 average, and was hot about that.
Give my point.
Yeah, and then I went to grad school, and it was just something for me. Like, I was like, okay, I'm gonna kill this. Getting straight A's. I think I got 1 B.
Okay.
And then what happened? I just was like, this ain't for me. They tell you to soul search. And I was reading a lot of, soul searching, I was reading a lot of law of attraction books too. And I was like, I want to be rich. I'm like, I want to do what I want to do. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't think this is for me. And I was looking around, and it wasn't too much of me in that classroom, even though I got along with everybody.
Yeah.
But they were very different from me, and it was maybe like one other man, and it was all women, which is cool, not tripping, but just like my background, just like who I was, who I am, it just didn't match.
It wasn't a fit.
I didn't fit in there. Like, and the whole time I'm like, okay, yeah, when I graduate, I'm gonna start my own practice, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna turn my therapist business into a multi-million-dollar business, right? And I'm like, okay, I don't know if this is gonna work. But part of my reason to be a therapist was to give back to the community and be a support for, people who look like me.
Yeah.
Because I know I dealt with a lot of stuff, and I was like, who did I have to help me, or who did I trust to talk to, And so I was like, let me be this therapist. Then I was like, you know what? I can give back without being a therapist. I can just be a good example.
Yeah.
I can give positive speeches on Instagram, and even the program told me first. They said, "Are you okay?" I said, yeah. I said, what's wrong? I said, I'm great. Y'all tell me to search. I soul search. My soul telling me I don't want to do this, right? And they was like, well, you're doing very good. Like, do you know you're getting straight A's? And I was like, oh yeah, that's really dope. But I was like, they were like, you're good. And I'm like, no, I was like, I just don't really. And then I told them what I thought my purpose was and why I'm doing this. And they were like, you know what? Well, you don't need to do this to give back.
Yeah.
You can do that without this. You create your program, whatever you want to do. You know, and that was it. And so I decided I left.
You off and running.
Yeah, I'm gone. I was like, I want to go to the playground. That's what I felt like. I felt like all right, I got enough education. I want to go make some money, and I want to make the world my playground.
Yeah.
And I'm ready to go have fun and make some money and play.
Well, that happened, you know, almost just by happenstance because you mentioned, you know, just because someone else, you know, you had already been cooking, you had already been, you know, working with ingredients to try to, you know, well, first of all, let's take a step back. You already moved to a vegan diet for your own self personally, right? And in that, playing around with ingredients, playing around with techniques, playing around with different meat replacements and all of those things, right? And then over time, getting an opportunity to have a vending spot because somebody just couldn't make it. So you're making this food for yourself. Then you start maybe making it and selling it and got the vending opportunity? Or what was the chronology between you becoming vegan, learning how to cook these foods, and then having that opportunity show up?
Yeah. So when I left school, I knew I wanted to open a restaurant.
Okay.
Or a food truck. It was food, restaurant, whatever I could get my hands on at that time, right? Came with an idea. Didn't use the first idea. The second idea came riding around in Uber. And I was like, I want to do it. All right. I called my dad, well, my stepdad. I got to divide the two. So they can know who I'm talking about, right? You know, but I both call them both pops. You know, one raised me, one's my biological father, and that I'm very close with, right? Both of them. And so called him up. I said, hey, I don't care what you say. I want to open up a barbecue stand downtown San Francisco, and it's going to be like healthy. Like I'm going to use healthy ingredients. And he was like, I think it's a great idea. As soon as he said that, I got pumped. I was like, okay, we about to do this. So I called my wife, and she was like, well, I understand you in it for the health. She's like, but I'm more ethical. And she was like, we vegans. And she was like, what about vegan barbecue? And I was like, ooh, vegan barbecue. I was like, oh. And that's when it switched. It hit a switch. And then I just met up with my boy, Evan Kadir. He owns Senior Seasick.
Hey.
He gave me a lot of.
It's another Bay Area staple.
Yep. And every hour we met for once a week for an hour. He gave me an hour every week.
Wow. And
just gave me game. I grew up with him, so I've known Evan since we're in high school. You know, he's a little younger than me. And in fact, he told me, he was like, you know, when you were popping, like as a rap artist, I came and got you. And you did some music for me. You are very humble.
Okay.
You know, you looked out for me. You didn't act Hollywood. You was down to earth. You really hella cool. He was like, and for that, he was like, whatever you need. He was like, yeah, whatever you need, I got you. Yeah. He was like, I appreciate it. And I was like, oh wow, look at that. It got me some gifts. He didn't have to, knowing him or not or being out, he didn't have to do that. So he hooked me up. We talked, and then boom, I started taking pictures and things like that. Then I finally laid it out to Instagram once I got my name, the Vegan Mob.
Yeah.
You know, copyrighted, whatever. And then I gave out gumbo the first day on a corner in the Diamond District.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the next day, I was like, you know what, I made some gumbo and some macaroni, and I was selling it on the corner. The next day, I was like, all right, let me try to sell this. Then people were like, yo, where you at? Where you at? So I had like 70 little trays. I was like, forget it. DM me, I'm coming to y'all. So I started selling it.
Start a route.
Just started a route, right? And then boom, the next day, my young 5-year-old, 4-year-old daughters was like, I don't want you to go to work. And I was like, she's just 5 years old. I don't know, 4 or 5, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I gotta go to work. And I was Ubering. And I was like, I gotta make money. And she was like, you don't gotta go to work. She was like, just sell plates. And I was like, and
kids be knowing.
They be knowing. And my wife was like, have faith. And I sat down on the couch. I said, okay. And I didn't go. And I got on Instagram. I was like, we deliver mob plates on Wednesday. Who want a mob plate? So like 50 plates in 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
Made like $1,000.
Ooh, in 2 hours?
Yep. And I was like, I'm never going back.
Like that was it.
That was it. I never went back. And then I started selling plates 3 days a week, delivering to people in San Francisco.
Okay.
And then people started to hit me up and was like, yo, you want to do a pop-up in my spot? You want to do a pop-up in my spot? And so Ethiopian place gave me a place to do a pop-up.
Okay.
Killed it that day. My boy, Chef Chu, he owned Veg Hub in the Diamond District.
Oh, I remember Veg Hub with the cheesesteak.
Uh-huh. Yeah, my boy, Chef Chu. And so he actually does the better Chu meat. Uh-huh. And so I went in there because I was at Veg Hub every day, every 2 days a week at least, eating the cheesesteaks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Smacking. And then so I was like, where you get your product from? And he was like, I'm the product. I make the product. So Chef Chu plugged me with some product, whatever. I was doing these pop-ups and stuff. Then Chef Chu was the guy who had the farmers markets.
Okay.
And he was like, because he had the Veg Hub going on, he was like, it's too much for me. He was like, take them over for me. So he gave me 3 of his farmers markets.
Okay.
So now I had 3 days a week, and then I would deliver in the other 2 days.
That's a lot.
Yep. I made myself a 5-day schedule.
Okay.
Yep.
So those farmers markets, I've had experience. I have a friend who owns a business here. That's my jam. For those of y'all who know, it's a jam company. But she started out similarly vending. And vending at farmers markets, as I started to accompany her to help out, that is not easy. Vending at farmers markets, between the prep, you got to get everything over there, the setup. But you talked about the experience of vending and realizing in real time a few things. One, this is more popular than I thought.
Yep.
2, understanding what things people acclimated to as far as the foods you sold, what people really liked, what were the top sellers, but also understanding systems, right? If it's just one person, how that impacts the rate of service. If it's just one person, how that impacts your ability to interact with the customers because you're doing all the things. So what did you learn? What did you walk away from the experience at farmers markets learning about systems?
Yeah. You know what? I thought I knew. I thought I only needed 3 people.
Okay.
But it was the system that we use and we still use right now. So having a cashier, a cook, and this, like, who does what, whose responsibilities are what. And so that was a system that I was gonna have when I first opened, but I couldn't. I needed 2 cashiers. I needed 3 or 4 cooks. Could have just went bananas. But that's where I learned how.
Yeah.
And in the farmer's market, I loved it at first. Creative, got there really creative at the market, made up some stuff, and then, like you said, setting up, doing this. Then I couldn't stand it no more. I was like, I need a spot. I was like, I can't want to do this no more. I was telling my wife, Then I ended up getting a spot. Evan from Senior CC actually hooked me up with the spot that I had at the lake.
Okay.
That was supposed to be his spot. And he said when he walked in, he was like, he really just seen Vegan Mob. And he was like, we gonna have he was like, look, it's it's more like a pop-up because it ain't gonna be a 10-year lease.
Okay.
But it's something that can get you
going.
He was like, it's big. He was like, I think it's the best way to start. And I was like, let's go. Mm-hmm. I was like, the craziest thing is that he was starting a restaurant in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. Chef Chu had his restaurant going on
in Fruitvale.
Yeah, here I am. I'm prepping at this kitchen. I'm getting ready, and I'm getting this funding for a food truck, and automatic my mind, like a week before it hits me, jumps, and I'm walking. I'm like, man, I wish I had a restaurant. And I was like, I tell myself, like, nah, Toriano, just be blessed. Yeah. Be thankful that you about to get a truck and you're doing this. You living your dream out. And I left it at that, and then boom, the restaurant came. I got my damn wish. It was
Put it out
crazy.
There.
He called me at 7 in the morning, and he was like, what you doing? I was like, prepping. What you doing? He's like, I got this restaurant. And before that, 2 of my friends that are very spiritual hit me up, said that I still got the messages. They had dreams. I had a restaurant.
Wow.
One of them said it was red and white. The floor was red. The building was red and white. That's what color the building was before I changed it. Mm-hmm. It was Merit Bakery. It was red and white. Like, everything was, like, spiritual.
Wow.
It was nuts.
Yeah.
And that's how I knew that I was going to be popping.
On the right path.
Because it was spiritual. It wasn't even about, it was all faith. It was all praying. It was all me writing stuff down. Mm-hmm. I just knew that God, that the universe was about to bless me, and whatever I'm about to do is about to be big. Mm-hmm. It wasn't even, I knew the food was good, but the spirituality is what was my confidence. That's what took over everything.
You knew you was walking in the right path.
I knew I was walking in the right path.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, a lot of people, were walking in that path. So that location at the lake is, where I found Vegan Mob originally when I moved here, and there would be lines and, it would be open late and people would be out. So even more so than the food, it seemed to be part of the culture, right, of food in the Bay, and with the paint and all the muraling outside. And I'm like, okay, this is one of those places that's really embodying the culture of the Bay Area. So you're selling vegan soul food, vegan barbecue. You have, I see like Danny Glover coming by there all the time on Instagram. So you got your clientele, regulars and the likes, and also, some people who are famous here in the Bay Area. But you also mentioned this conversation that we hear a lot around iterations of soul food. So I know that that's primarily soul food and barbecue are what you're doing, but putting that twist on it that takes into account some of the other ethnic foods that are part of the Bay Area. I always think this is such an interesting conversation when I hear it, because we know soul food to be a very specific thing as Black people. And now there's this conversation where people are saying, hey, there are other iterations of this, because that premise that gave birth to soul food in Black culture also exists in some capacity in other cultures, and so that it's a fusing of these things together. What are your thoughts about that topic, about soul food just being a very specific thing as we've understood it to be?
I mean, I say it's fun to grow. Yep, that's what I say. It's fun to grow. But soul food is definitely like, okay, my grandmother, she's always telling me I made my macaroni and cheese wrong. I did it how she told me to do it, but I added other stuff, right? And I used to tell her that, how you think this food was created? I was like, somebody thought of something different. And so it all derives, we know where it come from. We know the roots of it, but things progress, and like my recipes have an Asian influence on it, like certain little things in there got some Asian twist in there, you know what I mean? And so it's a part of what my culture is and what I was born into, plus the outside influences, and I think that's what's going on with other food that they would count in as soul food, I guess.
Yeah.
And I guess, soul food is soul food, but like, okay, Chinese people got their own type of soul food, like it come from their culture
Yeah.
that's feeds their soul. But yeah, we got this our genre though, right?
We will make it what we want it to be.
Yeah. They got that food, we got this food. So, I think food. I think things are innovative, and I think things change and stuff like that. You know? And so that's about food. That's how culture is.
That's how it goes. And you now have more than one location. You stated in here about being interested down the road in franchising Vegan Mob, right? And having it be global. Do you think that success as a restaurateur is more around the ability to plan and have experience, or do you think it has more to do with the ability to be adaptable?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. Adaptable is something that I definitely am. Like I transition and switch up as things go. Like that's what I do really well. The experience also gives me the confidence in some of that switch up too. And I did actually franchise in September. So my locations that I have, they're all franchises.
Nice.
I'm not running any of them. I just train and I just do the checks, and that's it. That's what we're doing now. So that experience definitely, there would be no franchising without my experience. But being adaptable helps me to be able to be flexible in each experience. So I'd say both for sure.
Okay. So now you're vegan. You got vegan customers. You got customers who aren't vegan. For people who are not vegan but are thinking about moving into a vegan lifestyle and they want to do some cooking of their own. I know you had a whole section in the book with a lot of ingredients, but what would be for, I call it, someone migrating into veganism, 5 things that they need to have in their kitchen as they start that journey?
Back in the day, a few years ago, I would have said like, you want to have some plant-based meat, you want to have some plant-based cheese, you want to, a Vegan Mob cookbook.
Hey.
There you go. I really think a Vegan Mob cookbook can help you out. To be honest with you, it's like, that's another one thing. What else can I say? 5 things. You just want to make everything that you had before plant-based. Like anything that you really like, just turn it plant-based.
Okay.
That's gonna help you out.
I can't get off that cheese.
That's hard.
That's gonna be the thing for me if I ever were to try to adopt a plant-based diet. The cheese is hard.
It's tough, and we got some recipes in here, but even like pizza, I still haven't found a good cheese for a pizza.
Okay.
A cheese and cracker. I like cheese and crackers. I still haven't found a really good cheese for a cheese and cracker. You can try Miyokos, but it's still not there yet. But I think that it will get there for sure. Like it's definitely a huge difference from what it was 10 years ago.
People be innovating. These products have come a long way.
They come a long way. And definitely that's what you want to have is a cookbook. Find you a good melted cheese that you want to maybe. Now, like I said, the cold cheese is still hard, but something that melts good and tastes good, a good plant-based meat. Those are things that I will
Okay.
say you have in the kitchen.
Some meat, some cheese, and some directions.
There you go.
That's what you need to get
Yeah,
started. Well, this has been great. I just want to wrap us up with how you ended the book. You say that's what you hope this book does for you too, you being the reader. I hope it inspires you to get in your kitchen, get in your community, spend time with your family. This book is about looking at your own journey and finding a calling that pulls all of the influences of your life together. Wherever you do your thing, get busy and do your best. It's the mob.
Let's get it.
That's it.
That's it.
Well, tell people where they can find Vegan Mob. People here know, but maybe they don't know. So if they don't know, tell them where they can find restaurants. Tell them where they can find you online.
All right. So if you're in the West Bay, the East Bay, this side of the Bay, go to 1199 El Camino Real across the street from Tanforan at the Hangry Planet gas station. A Vegan Mob food truck, just like the restaurant. Everything is beautiful. Mm-hmm. If you out further, you can go to Santa Rosa, California, and that's open 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. The one in San Bruno is open from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. and that's Tuesday through Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah. So and we got some more. We're working on some more locations. So
okay. Where can people find you online?
Online, www.veganmob.biz, or you can find me on Instagram at official Vegan Mob, or Facebook at Vegan Mob, Vegan Soul Food, Vegan Barbecue, Vegan Soul Food. You can find me on TikTok at Vegan Mob. Mm-hmm. So we all over.
Okay.
Yeah.
You were so kind as to bring a plate of food up here today for me, so I'm definitely going to get in it.
There you go.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
If y'all want to find me in between episodes, you can find me on Instagram at Hey K in the Bay. And that has been this week's episode of the As Told By podcast. See you on the next one.
Bye.